Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
And today we are going to be discussing Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Episode 6.
Of Season 2. This will be Lost in Translation.
Yes. We start out on Stardate 23. I don't know why I love the fact that whenever they do Stardates, I look it up. Stardate 2394.8, which is going to be May 25th, 2325 at 2:26 a.m.
That's a little early.
It's really early.
It's a little early for a log entry.
Which kind of explains why, at the very beginning, Ensign Nyota is, like, dog-tired. But why is Pike...
Why is Pike on the bridge?
Why is Pike on the bridge?
Monologuing?
And actually, that's a genuine question. So you, in your military career, were in the Navy, and
yes.
So you have some familiarity to this, and you've said to me that captains rarely are on the bridge.
It's not that they're rarely on the bridge, it's that they can go wherever they want at any point in time. So there's always the officer of the deck, which is someone who has overall command of the ship at any given time, and there's a whole watch bill drawn up. So 24/7, 365, there's somebody in command, as in aware of everything that's going on. The captain has ultimate responsibility for the command, but sometimes the captain is needed in other parts of the ship, and so someone has to be looking out on the bridge, making sure, the ship is pointed in the right direction and goes where it's going. So Star Trek doesn't really do that, though.
No.
Like, it's weird. I still haven't been able to figure out exactly the operational command structure of the ship when it's underway, like how things work. Because you'll have sometimes the captain and the first officer on the bridge, or sometimes you have all the senior officers on the bridge, and then they'll just get up and leave. And it's like, well, who's supposed to take their spots? Because there weren't that many people on the bridge when they opened up the shot, but suddenly they all get up to go to the conference room or beam down to a planet, and suddenly there's no one on the bridge.
Yeah.
Someone has to be in that seat, maintaining operational control of the ship. And in the case of Star Trek, like The Next Generation, the episode Disaster, where Deanna Troi happens to be on the bridge when this major catastrophe happens, and they're like, oh, you're the senior officer, you're in charge. No. No, she's like a staff officer.
The counselor.
She has no command experience, no operational understanding of the ship. Just because she's a lieutenant commander doesn't mean she gets to be in command. Like Ensign Ro, I think, is on the bridge in that episode, and she clearly has training in the operation of a starship, and she would have had operational authority. And this is where the chain of command structure is actually very different in a Navy structure than it is in, say, the Air Force or the Army and whatnot, because of the different responsibilities that a person's rank is separate from their job title. So command authority isn't derived necessarily from how far up the rank ladder you've climbed. It's where the Navy has bestowed responsibility. So you have captains of ships who are lieutenant commanders and commanders. They're not actual rank of captains, but in my case, I wasn't enlisted, so I was an E5, and I was put in charge of a work center where I had E6s reporting to me because I was better suited for the job skills. I had more experience than some of the E6s in my division, so I was put in authority over them, even though my rank among the enlisted ranks was lower.
Oh.
So Star Trek, I really still haven't figured out exactly how they've set up the command and rank structure, because I actually don't think the writers fully understand military rank and authority and command and whatnot. They just sort of make it up. And as writers rotate through, they kind of bring in their own bias or their own understanding. And then nobody checks it. I don't know.
Nobody does any fact
So,
checking.
I mean, if Pike wants to be monologuing at 2:00 in the morning on the bridge of his ship, he is certainly welcome to do that.
It is his ship.
It is his ship. And we've learned that his quarters are on the opposite end of the saucer, at the front end of the saucer section. So it's a bit of a walk.
Yeah.
To get to the bridge. But if he wants to spend his free time, that's his prerogative as captain, as commanding officer.
He's got some nice quarters, though.
That's one of the best sets
Oh my
of the
god,
show
this set is
is
gorgeous.
Pike's quarters, which were not featured in this episode. We
No.
should get back to Lost in Translation. I think we're getting lost in translation.
But I think it's good to know because we do kind of get that sense that Star Trek is kind of military based in a lot of the aspects of the shows, but at the same time they're an exploration based organization, so it's not necessarily military.
Right. Is
So-
Starfleet military, or is it what is it? It's
Yeah.
like a merchant marine,
Yeah.
scientific merchant marine. What is it? And it's very ambiguous, and it's really ambiguous when Starfleet goes to war. And we've talked about this in previous podcasts where Starfleet is not a very good military
No.
installation. They really don't have good order and discipline for combat.
No, and their ships are not combat ships. Like,
They are not.
with what is it, Picard, and then with this last season of Discovery, yeah, they've built some military style ships, but really the only truly military ships that we've seen were the Defiant, and then the rebooted movies where what was the admiral's name from Into Darkness?
Right. Yeah.
That ship was massive and had thick hull armor, and that was definitely a military style ship. So
Yeah, they dabble, but Starfleet as a whole is a very, very peacetime organization with a lax in discipline when it comes to procedure and discipline in combat.
Yes.
So, but anyway, back to Lost in Translation.
back to Lost in Translation. I started off this episode thinking that it was going to be that we were going to be dealing with the Gorn. I don't know about you, but I definitely had that feeling. The way this season has been building up to the big bad being the Gorn. I mean, the fact that what is it? The first 5 minutes of dialogue, the Gorn are mentioned.
Right.
So I definitely had that feeling, and to find out that the big bad was not the Gorn and it was actually something else, it was kind of refreshing. I don't know. It took me a minute to figure out what was going on, but I kind of liked it. It kind of took us back to just the random episodes that Star Trek does.
This to me reminding me a lot of Equinox, the 2-parter episode in Voyager, where the Equinox uses this substance to fuel their ship to propel them through the Delta Quadrant so they can get home sooner.
That was those little space creatures.
They were space creatures,
creatures.
And they had some form of intelligence, and the crew of the Equinox knew this but did it anyway.
They were trying to get home, so it was like a moral question. Is this right?
Speaking of discipline, and
yeah,
that stretches into honor and whatnot. But yeah, this to me reminded me very much of a very Star Trek type of a story.
Yeah.
It's something you can't see. And one of the things I think is really important is how much, Uhura is an ensign. It's a very junior ensign, because when we saw her last season, she was like a cadet.
Yeah.
An intern.
Yeah.
And so she's screaming over the comm at the end of the episode for, shut down the array or whatever.
Fire torpedoes.
Fire torpedoes,
Pike's like,
yeah. But that Pike would have that much confidence in her and believe her, because she is the only one seeing and hearing anything, but there was evidence to track, so
but the fact that he gave her that much trust and has that level of respect for her really shows the camaraderie and strength of this crew, of this cast.
I thought what was really interesting is that we witnessed the first time Kirk and Uhura meet. Yes. In this episode, and it reminded me a lot of when Kirk and Uhura meet in the Kelvin universe, where Kirk actually is hitting on Uhura in the bar. In this case, I definitely did not feel like Kirk was hitting on her.
No, I was a little awkward. That felt a little awkward to me. I was like, please don't, because I kind of want to see something happen with La'an and Kirk, because we've already seen something, but that was an alternate timeline,
right?
So I didn't want to see him do something with somebody else. I don't know.
I get that, because it really would be awkward for Lon, and they had a beautiful scene between the two of them. I really liked the scene between Lon and Kirk in this episode, because it didn't imply anything other than you could sense a longing in Lon for what she's lost, for what she knows, for the version of him that she knew. But in from Kirk's perspective, she brought out a thought, about his father being gone, and La'an, of course, was helped by Starfleet. She was rescued, from the Gorn and whatnot. So that was, showing the opposite side, where Kirk grew up, father off in Starfleet, always gone. And as a person whose my own father he wasn't in Starfleet. He was a long haul truck driver. So he was gone for days and weeks at a time. I mean, I could relate to that,
Yeah.
Very different reasons why my dad was gone and why Kirk's dad was gone, but still, so I appreciated the fact that even though, like, she understands who he is and who he isn't, but they were still able to share, like, a tender moment in the episode that didn't have, like, some profound, deeper meaning beyond what it was. It was just a simple act of a brief dialogue exchange that I thought was carried out really well. That really did touch on what we saw in Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of times in previous iterations of Star Trek, once something happens in an episode, unless it's huge, like Picard being assimilated, like, it's never really referenced in any future episodes. It's like, whatever happened in the past is in the past, and we don't talk about it, like, there's no history. And one thing I really do like about Strange New Worlds is that even though they're predominantly standalone episodes, there's reference and nuance to previous episodes, and there is some arc and some through line that continues, and I really appreciate that effort to do that.
Yes, I did appreciate that about this episode, is that they did kind of do a little bit of callback to previous episodes, but it's a standalone episode. I mean, just the entities that we encounter in this, the hallucinations that Uhura has. One thing that did bother me with this episode is when the other, what was he, an ensign or lieutenant? Ramon. He's having hallucinations. He's having problems, and he disappears and shuts down the power, some power on the ship. Don't they have sensors? Can't they tell where
internal sensors?
Yeah, can't they tell where people are? Why do they have to go, deck by deck, room by room? And even then, where's the rest of the crew? The only other crew that we see during this entire time are people who get injured or killed.
Well, I have a lot of questions about security procedures, and and to be fair, Lon wasn't in sickbay when this happened, so whatever. She needs to train some of her lackeys to be a bit better, because this guy was arrested for sabotage.
And there were no security officers anywhere.
There was one. Because remember, he runs out of sickbay, grabbing like that laser scalpel, and he slashes Mbenga, and then runs out, and then like the security guard fires wildly like a stormtrooper.
Oh, seriously? Yeah, now I remember that scene. Yeah, no, it's just like shots all over the place.
I don't know what he was shooting at, but clearly it wasn't the guy running out of the room. Because there's sparks going everywhere. It's just like, thanks, stormtrooper.
We need to build this tension up, so miss repeatedly, and then we're going to chase after this person.
Right. And Uhura is going to stay put until she's not.
And
then she's going to go and find him, sort of, like find his tracks. And then she's not going to stay put. She's going to keep going.
Seriously, she's like, I found him. I think I found where he's gone. It's in the Jeffries tube over here. Okay, stay put. Okay.
Right.
What? Again, I get it. We need to build the tension. We need to keep the plot moving and the story moving. But
can I say it's never stress?
What?
It's never stress Like Ohura's having hallucinations, and she even finds the case in point where now it wasn't deuterium poisoning or whatever, because I had the first one before I even went into the cell, and Nurse Chapel's like, you have a textbook case of exhaustion and overwork. It's never that.
No.
It's never
how
just.
how many episodes do we need to watch before they realize?
It's never stress. Something else is going on. Can you just? It's never stress.
No.
But
I did think that it was an interesting way to communicate. That these aliens found a way to communicate by sending images and drawing out emotions.
Oh, sure.
From
Okay,
Uhura.
there's 2 points I would make. That notion is very similar to an episode of Next Generation called Night Terrors, where everyone's REM cycle is interrupted except for Troy, who can dream but has these nightmares of this alien, eyes in the dark,
I vaguely
one
remember
moon
that
circles.
episode.
Like, what is that supposed to mean? I don't know, but they're saying it in English, eyes in the dark, one moon circles, and somehow she's supposed to determine that they need to shoot hydrogen into this opening in space or something, and this is spatial anomaly, and that's going to collapse it and release these aliens. Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, but again, Uhura is able to take all of her visions and exactly translate, like, okay, I was in the passageway and the walls started caving in, so they feel trapped, and then when they destroyed the Enterprise because they're trying to break away, well, I'm okay, that's a bit of a leap. And then I'm attacking myself because we're responsible. And it's like, she's really good at this. Like, just taking and, she, inflecting her own emotions. But, I mean, emotions in humans are so nuanced. It could have gone in any number of directions. But she's like...
I mean, I don't think I could have gotten to that point, but
I was like, I don't know what it means. Like,
Nyota is very intelligent. Otherwise,
is.
she wouldn't be in the position that she's in at such a young age.
Yes, and she's a knack for language.
Yeah, so she's very intuitive, and I think that, giving, especially with this episode, giving her that role in this episode, I thought was perfect.
So there is one thing as the engineer in me wants to bring up, and that's her again screwing around in the nacelle, watching Hemmer's YouTube video on how to recalibrate the communications array.
I was wondering if you were going to have something to say about this.
No. Okay. First of all, like in a traditional U.S. Navy setup, that kind of job would be carried out by someone who enlisted, not an officer. But I realize the subject matter experts in Starfleet are officers. So as the communications officer, or one of many communications officers aboard the Enterprise, she should know how to do that procedure. She shouldn't need an engineer's YouTube video. In fact, that should be part of her personal qualification standard to qualify to stand watch on the bridge, to know how to do these regular routine maintenance procedures on the equipment that you're supposed to be operating.
But then, Jen, we wouldn't have that lovely little YouTube video.
I know.
And her heartfelt moment.
Right.
So, come on.
I mean, I get it. I'm just saying. From an operational standpoint, your like in our Navy, the comm officer, I wouldn't let him anywhere near the comm equipment. There'd be enlisted technicians who know exactly how to run that equipment, and they'd be the ones doing it. And any officer who puts their grubby paws on it needs to be slapped. Don't touch, you'll break it.
Well, of course, you don't let officers anywhere near anything important.
Right? They're only responsible. They're not actually supposed to operate it. They're just responsible for it.
There's a reason why you go to 4 years of schooling to learn this one specific thing.
Well, I mean,
and then have an officer come in.
Right. It depends on your rating. In my case, I had 2 years of formal training before they let me go to the fleet. But others, sometimes it's only 3 months or 6 months of training. But you learn your very specific job in the Navy, and as you grow, particularly in the enlisted ranks, as you grow in that position, you again, years of operating that same piece of equipment, that doesn't really change much from ship to ship. You learn how it works, the ins and outs of how to operate it. So officers, they just rotate through every 2 years maybe, doing different jobs at each duty station. So they're like masters of nothing. Like, they may be a division officer of one thing, and move on to a department head in a completely different area on their next duty assignment. So
I saw a picture once.
a picture.
I saw a picture once.
You saw a picture once.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is. So, I mean, I appreciate what they were doing, the tender moments. Again, if she were doing something in engineering, though, she should be checking in with, in the Navy, it would be the engineering officer of the watch. So, like, if you're operating equipment in a space that other people are working, they need to know that you're working.
Yeah.
So when the chief engineer walks up and she's basically like, what the hell are you doing in here? That tells me that Uhura didn't actually, like, communicate as a communications officer what she was doing.
That was one thing you just made me think of. 2 different people in this episode basically refused to talk to the new chief engineer.
Yes.
Because they're still hurting on the inside because they were friends with the previous chief engineer.
Yeah. I had a hard time buying that.
Yeah.
I had a real hard time buying that. Like, I get it. Like, she replaced Hemmer, and he was a very popular character, and I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that he was very popular, but the showrunners didn't know how popular he was going to be because, it's shot and then it spends like a year and a half in post-production before the fans ever get a chance to see it. And so they're moving on to season 2 to write season 2 before fans have seen most of season 1. So they don't really know. Whereas a regular network show, by mid-season, what's working and what isn't because you've got a 6-week turnaround. But when you've got a year and a half to sit in post-production,
we
you're
killed
so
off
much,
one of the most popular characters.
It's like, maybe we shouldn't have killed him. But, like, I don't have a problem with them killing off meaningful characters because it adds weight and gravity to those characters.
A sense of realism.
Right, exactly. So I really think the reason Una Chin Riley had a hard time talking with the new engineer is that she's a space hippie, and that just really jives with
I love this.
with who Chin Riley
you have
is.
Crumbs on your uniform. Where did you get food?
Right.
I love, again, I know every time we've seen this actress in any episode so far this season, I feel that she steals the scene. And again, she does.
She does.
I mean, that was just great. She just is this little teeny tiny little thing, and she comes up to Una Chin, and she's like... I mean, overall, I thought this was a really good episode. It was a strong standalone episode. A little corny at the end, a little cheeseball-y, but
I loved the fact that Spock walks up and Sam Kirk leaves his glass as a nod from the previous episode. I will break you. Picked it up and put it on the server's tray. So it's that kind of subtlety I just love seeing.
Oh, absolutely. I did, mentioning Sam and James in the episode, I did like that little sibling rivalry that they had going on. You definitely could tell, like, older brother, younger brother mentality.
Definitely.
Like, well, Dad loves you more. Dad loves both of us. Whatever.
I do like that, yes.
So that camaraderie, that family sibling rivalry was really cool. And yeah, the whole, like, nod to the previous episode with Spock. was perfect.
So great. So we did see a scene between Spock and Chapel that kind of continued a little bit what we saw at the end of the last episode, and
it's kind of a pseudo
it's
date.
like Spock's like, I want to go to HR, and Chapel's like, nah,
no.
And I appreciate that because so many relationships, I think, have the chance of failing right out of the gate when too many people know about it, when there's too many eyes on them before you've had a chance to really figure out who you are as a couple. And I appreciate that Chapel already knows that too many people know.
Yeah. Yeah, we know that a lot of people know.
So, like, broadcasting it to Starfleet's just like...
And I get that Spock is, by the books, everything needs to be done properly, everything's in its place. But yeah, no, Chapel's like, can we just, like, feel this out first? Can we just, like, enjoy the ride before we label anything?
And Spock actually used the term fraternization, and I don't know what the rules of fraternization are in Starfleet, because Picard never should have dated like
90% of the people
well,
that he
well,
was
like Nella
banging.
Darren in one episode, and then kissing on Dr. Crusher should never been a thing because he's like
Picard, not. I was thinking Kirk. Sorry.
well, Kirk too.
Kirk,
Like,
yeah, Kirk.
Kirk's had his moments too, but like
Almost every episode.
if you are not senior in rank, but if you are in the chain of command of somebody, you can't be screwing around with them. Like if I have to report to you as a direct report, there's no relationship, because then there's the bias and impropriety and lack of focus and a deterrent from good order and discipline. So in this case, Spock is the science officer. He's not second in command like he eventually becomes.
Yeah.
He's just the science officer. Presumably the science officer is in charge of science department, so he's effectively a department head. But Chapel reports to M'Benga.
Yeah.
M'Benga reports to Pike. Like, Spock is not in her chain of command. There is no conflict of interest as far as the chain of command is concerned. So there is no by the legal term of fraternization, at least as I've come to know it in the Navy. Fraternizing is just two people socializing. I suppose there's that, but in the technical definition of it, there's no fraternization, at least not yet. Now, eventually, Spock sort of becomes the executive officer of the Enterprise. Like they kind of don't say that really explicitly in Kirk's time.
Yeah.
Because there is no number one.
Yeah. No, he doesn't really have a.
So Spock has sort of this
command.
dual role as science officer and first officer.
I will say I did enjoy the very end when Kirk comes over, because Uhura, or no, it was Spock that comes over, because Uhura and Kirk are talking, James, I should say, are talking in the bar, and Spock comes over, and you get that scene, they have a close up on the handshake, the two of them shake hands, and that's definitely a nod to the future of the show and what's going to happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, so not only does Kirk meet Uhura, Kirk meets Spock.
And so this bond, this friendship, this team mentality is born in this one scene. So I thought that was really cool.
It is. It's very cool.
So we have something to look forward to. I don't anticipate we get much more of Kirk, of James, in the rest of this season. I think we'll probably see him once or twice, but I think it'll be like via a comms call.
I have no idea.
The Farragut.
I have no idea what's in store.
Well, neither do I. We've got my gut feelings.
What, 4 episodes left?
This was episode 6. Yeah, 4 episodes left.
And although we have heard that Strange New Worlds has been renewed for season 3, it has, to my knowledge, not rolled into production, which means it's not written.
Yeah.
And as long as the strike is going on, it can't be written. So no work is being done on anything.
I'm bummed about this, but at the same time, I'm like, keep up the hustle, you guys out there. Like, you guys deserve much better than how you're being treated. So,
Oh, definitely. We're pro writers, pro actors.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry if that wasn't clear. The writers and the actors that have been treated like absolute dog turds for years now, I am on your side. I support you guys. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into that because that gets me all heated. But that being said, I really want to see season 3 sooner rather than later.
Right. And this is a seminal moment in the movie production world as these two big unions are fighting it out with the studios, and it will be interesting to see who blinks, moving forward. And I mean, the studios have unrealistic expectations, and maybe this, I don't know, could this be the end of production as we've known it?
Maybe.
I have no idea.
I mean, again, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think there's a lot of people out there that have very unrealistic expectations and views of how the world should be. And the rest of us are starting to stand up and fight back. So go writers.
Go writers. Go actors.
Go actors. I mean, other than that, I think this episode was like I said, it was a good standalone episode. Had a lot of good moments, fun moments. Like I said, a little corny at the end with the hammer nodding and fading off into nothingness.
Yes.
Little cheese ball, but otherwise it was a good episode. I do want to know, like, I know that Starfleet doesn't, use currency. There's no money in the Federation, but how much do you think that deuterium collector cost? I mean, that thing was huge.
It was huge, like,
I
and
mean,
they had just got it operational.
must
Like,
been,
you
like-
couldn't have just like towed it out of there and like parked it somewhere else, or I don't know, recycled it.
Literally, let's just shoot 13 torpedoes at it and just blow the damn thing to hell.
Yes.
But oh my god, the thing was huge, and it's a sophisticated piece of equipment. That thing must have cost like quintillions.
Right. That's the Federation for you. That's Starfleet. Like, just resource management.
Yeah. Hey, we can replicate things. It doesn't matter. We can synthesize things. Excuse me.
I think what they're using, if we extrapolate forward, there's a lot of automation, and like you can see where the 3D printing technology is going on into the form of replication. So you're having a lot of raw materials that are in system or in the stellar nursery that are going through and being converted into components. So my guess is that if all the raw materials were there, it probably didn't cost as much as you might think it is, because it's just the industrial replicators that were there to build the array. Still,
Get the equipment out there. It's on the border of uncharted space.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been cheap.
I appreciated like they fire their torpedoes, the thing starts blowing up, and there's like a dialogue exchange, and then they cut to a shot where you see the view screen and it's still blowing up.
Yeah.
It's just like, it just kept going.
We're not done yet.
That was kind of cool.
I mean, it was a huge station.
It's like they're not like in awe watching it from beginning to end. It's like, it's once it starts blowing up, it's like, yeah, that's cool. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Talk. Well, I'm looking forward to next week's episode. Next week's episode is going to be, I hope, my favorite episode of the season.
It's going to be something.
It's going to be something, regardless. It's supposed to be a crossover with Lower Decks, which is an animated Star Trek show. I love all the actors that voice the characters for this show. I'm really looking forward to seeing this crossover. So I can't wait to record next week's episode's review. So
yeah, me too. It'll be fun.
awesome. Anything else?
That's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
Have a good one.